Okay, YouTube blade lovers and TwoSun lovers. We've got this vid for you today. This is not a new TwoSun knife in the TwoSun stable. Been out close to a year, I think. This is the TS198, and it doesn't have a name, just the number. So I'm doing a few more TwoSun reviews, and I know there have been some requests for more TwoSun reviews, so thank you, viewer Tom Brown, if you don't mind me giving you a shout out. Decided to throw this out there today and see if there's some interest. This is I don't know if it's right to call TwoSun Knives unusual, because they've got so many designs and there's so many different designs, very often by different designers, besides TwoSun in-house, that, some of them are more run-of-the-mill, standard, a Bowie or a drop point, this, that, or the other thing. I find this one's got some interesting features to it, so we're going to take a look at it. First of all, it is let me back out just a little here. It is a front flipping knife. It's a full-size knife. It front flips pretty easily. There's no other option for opening it unless you wanted to see if you could pinch it out from here, and I don't find that's really that easy. So we're just going to call it a front flipper. What I find with this one and some other TwoSun front flippers is, rather than put your whole thumb here and try to open it quickly, that's a good way to open it slowly, the way you'd roll out a thumb stud knife. But I find that if I approach it down on an angle, kind of crosswise here, that's the most positive way to flip it out. Me and my big mouth, huh? So you got 2 finger grooves. It's a frame lock. You got some style holes there. You got 5 of those. Solid titanium handle. It's a C1428N Sandvik blade. TwoSun's doing a lot of those now in their low to mid-end knives. If they're successful, they seem to be doing them in S90V and M390, amongst some other steels. But this allows it to be a little less expensive. You can pick this up, I think, for somewhere around $60, maybe less. Here's the thing. When the TwoSun knife models first come out, it doesn't matter what the steel is. If it's a wild design, if it's by a well-known maker that someone's following, I've seen those knives go for up to $200 in Sandvik steel. So certainly not something you're paying for in materials. You can get a good real steel knife in Sandvik for $50-60 and get a nice design. You can get a Rocat by Ivan Bragnet's design for, like, I think $60, $70 at the most. So it really isn't the steel, and that's in a Sandvik steel, by the way, that particular knife. And I have one of those, and probably do a review on that one of these days. Thing is, for me, I don't borrow any knives. I purchase them all. I'm not given any knives by manufacturers or distributors. I buy all my own, give you my own thoughts on them, and you can have your opinion on, what you see. So let's get on with it. Interesting design. You can choke up. You've got a dish here. I call it a dish. Not really a thumb ramp. And you've got a nice choil right in here with a nice edge termination that is angled forward so that point doesn't stick you when you put your finger in there. And you can get most of your finger in there unless you got real sausage fingers. You may want to come back a little and be careful. You do have jimping here. It's not particularly aggressive. I can definitely feel it. It's set back a little bit, but that thumb ramp goes all the way out, and you got a good grip there. Again, you want to choke up. It's very nicely designed for that. Don't know what you want to call the blade style. It's sort of bordering on a upswept point, but it's really, as you can see, a straight back, not a drop point. Drop point blade, you have to have the back come down to meet the point below the top line, and I'm considering that flat there at the top of the blade. You got some very good meat to the blade. We're going to measure everything up in just a minute so you get some perspective on the size. So let's do that without me knocking the camera out of place. Got one tripod leg that comes back. Now I got to straddle it. So the full length of this guy is, we're going to call it 8 5/8. We're going to call the full blade 3 3/4. Going to call the cutting edge 3 1/2, just a little more than that, close to 3 3/8 maybe. We have thicknesses. Right up here, blade stock 3.8 millimeter. We have a handle width in inches of 1/2 inch exactly. Wants to go down to 4.9. And I'm going to call it a 1/2 inch. Teeny bit less than a half. And let's get a weight on it. And just under 4 ounces, 3.99. Can't get much closer to 4 without being 4. Pivots. Got a nice brushed pivot there, large one. You got a triangular sort of design on the torque side. It is a T8. Pocket clip is close to deep carry, but not exactly, but pretty close. You get a blade to handle ratio, pretty maximized. I don't think you could squeeze too much more out of it. You got a centered blade. I have adjusted this, but it was centered when it arrived. This one came straight from a TwoSun dealer on eBay in China, one of 2 that seem to sell directly from the factory. One is DWin99 and the other is TwoSun. And that's how you know you're getting genuine TwoSun, those 2 dealers on eBay. However, White Mountain Knives usually has a limited inventory while they last. Front flippers aren't really my preference, but this is such a interesting and unusual knife that I don't mind. Nice defined large lanyard hole there. Back spacer only near the butt end. Thick titanium. Again, the drilled holes. No weight relieving at all. Nope. Take that back. Hang on. Yeah. Now we got some weight relieving in there. Some large slots. What do you know? So they did take some of that weight out, which is why we've got a full-size knife of over, what did I say, 8.5 inches. That only weighs 4 ounces. So pretty close to the ounce per inch formula that some people like to use. All right, let's do some size comparisons. Start out with the biggest, rat 1. So pivot to pivot. We have a very similar sized knife. I'd say almost exactly the same length, and blade exactly the same length. Freak. Pivot to pivot. Blade pretty much the same. Overall, pretty much the same. I never knew the Freak was the same size as the rat 1. Let's put him out there. Well, rat 1 is a little larger. So it could just be the perspective from the camera. I'd have to say the 198 TwoSun is slightly larger than the Freak. Ever so slightly. And for you Griptilian fans out there, the Griptilian, pivot to pivot. We definitely have about coming up on a 1/2 inch longer, maybe 3/8 longer blade. And we have a longer handle on the TS198. Alrighty, the TwoSun TS198 with no name. Next one I do is going to have a name. How about that? This old sword signing out, and hope you enjoyed this. Give it a like, subscribe, enjoy.